As you know, the President has just concluded a productive meeting with South Korean President Moon. This is the 6th visit between them. The two leaders had significant conversations on important issues, including the scheduled U.S.-North Korea summit. Both leaders are committed to working together to accomplish the common goal of complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. As you also know, it's commencement season, and the President and First Lady would like to extend a special congratulations to World War II veteran Bob Barger. 68 years since he last sat in a classroom, Bob graduated from the University of Toledo. This month, after a review of his transcripts from the late 1940s, showed he completed enough courses to qualify for an associate's degree. As the President said in his letter to Bob, his hard work, diligence, and passion to learn exemplify the greatest generation's commitment to excellence and the American spirit. As you know, the President took a number of questions earlier, so we'll keep this short today, and with that, I'll get started. Jonathan.
Sarah, do you agree with the South Korean official who said that there would be a 99% chance that this summit with Kim Jong-un comes off? And how will the President ultimately make the decision about whether or not to go?
The President addressed this earlier directly to you and said that we'll see what happens. We continue to prepare for the summit, and if they want to meet, we will certainly be ready. And the President, I think, rightly stated that if North Korea agrees to denuclearize, that it can be a bright future for them. But we remain clear-eyed in these negotiations, but we continue to prepare, and we'll see what happens.
What preconditions, though, does he have? What does he see that the North Koreans have to do to make him make that trip? And let me just ask you, the challenge coins were made. Was it premature to make those coins commemorating the summit?
So on the first part of your question, the President's laid out what he wants to see as a commitment to denuclearization. That has not changed. In terms of the coins, this is not something that the White House has anything to do with. We don't have any input on the design, the manufacture, the process in any capacity. This is a standard procedure by the White House Communications Agency, which is made up exclusively of career military officials, and these coins are designed and done by that organization. Pamela?
Thank you, Sarah. Why would the U.S. guarantee the safety of a dictator whose regime is a serial human rights abuser and is responsible for the recent death of an American college student? Why is that the morally right thing to do?
Again, the goal and the purpose of these conversations would be to have complete and total denuclearization of the peninsula, and the President has been upfront about that part of the conversation, and we're going to continue to move forward.
Just to follow up,
Major,
Sarah, really quickly.
Sorry, I'm going to keep moving just because we're going to be really short today. Major, go ahead.
Sarah, you talked about preparations for the summit. Can you describe for us how the President himself is personally preparing? Who is he working with? How much time does he devote on a daily basis to get ready for the underlying themes, questions, and difficulties of a summit of this magnitude?
As you all know, he spent a significant amount of time meeting both in person and having regular phone conversations with other world leaders like you saw today with South Korean President Moon, as well as he has constant and regular meetings with his national security team. This is something they talk about on a daily basis and will continue to in preparation. Jordan?
Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah. I want to ask about this meeting the Chief of Staff is setting up for lawmakers regarding the documents that they've requested about the Russia investigation. Can you say what specific documents the lawmakers will be allowed to see? Chairman Nunes has requested all documents related to this intelligence source. Will he get to see all of the documents?
That's something that you would have to ask the Department of Justice. I can tell you the President asked Chief of Staff Kelly to set up the meeting. It is scheduled to take place on Thursday of this week. The individuals that are expected to attend are Chairman Nunes, Chairman Gowdy, FBI Director Wray, DNI Director Coates, and DOJ official Ed O'Callaghan. No one from the White House staff will attend. Blake?
The North Koreans are bringing in some journalists to view what they say is the dismantling of a nuclear test site. Curious if the administration believes that site is already damaged, as some are led to believe, and what exactly the administration's response is to this.
I don't have anything that I can comment on that at this front. Stephen? Steve?
Yes, Sarah. Can you tell us what was the outcome of the discussions between the South Korean president and President Trump today about the size and cost of U.S. troops in South Korea?
The focus, at least in the meeting that I was in, that specifically did not come up, but certainly conversations primarily centered around preparations towards the scheduled summit. Darlene.
You said that no one from the White House staff will attend the meeting on Thursday. Does that not mean that the chief of staff, Kelly, would not attend?
He was charged with coordinating and making sure it took place, but at this point is not expected to attend. Michael.
Can you respond a little bit, though, to why no Democrats would be at that meeting? If the White House is putting its imprimatur on it, the Democrats have said that they think it's inappropriate to have a meeting set up with just Republicans in the Justice Department. Is the White House, would the White House welcome Democrats to be at that meeting?
We'll keep you posted. My understanding is they haven't been the ones requesting this information.
They say that to the extent that the White House is sort of brokering a deal between the Justice Department and
I'd hardly call brokering a deal to help coordinate a meeting and help Congress receive information that they've requested. To my knowledge, the Democrats have not requested that information, so I would refer you back to them on why they would consider themselves randomly invited to see something they've never asked to. Jeff?
Sarah, the President spoke at length this morning about his vision for a solution to dealing with Chinese company ZTE. Both Republicans and Democrats on the Hill are criticizing that, and saying that he is bowing to pressure from Beijing. Senator Schumer, I believe, called it a wet noodle solution. What's the White House's response to that criticism?
The U.S. and China relationship has a number of issues that we're constantly having conversations. National security, trade, ZTE is among one of those, and this is something that the President has asked Commerce to look into, and he's outlined some possible actions against ZTE by Commerce, but at this point they're still in discussion, and there's nothing else to add beyond what the President already said this morning.
To their criticism, though, about what he has said on Capitol Hill?
Like I've said a few times before, Senator Schumer is not somebody this White House is probably ever going to take advice from on how to negotiate or get a good deal on anything, particularly based on his track record. And certainly, I think his weakness when it comes to China. We finally have a president who's actually calling out China on their unfair trade practices, and not just calling them out, but actually doing something about it and aggressively pushing forward in negotiations, something that we haven't seen in decades. And so Senator Schumer is probably the last person we would call and ask for on how to make a deal. Anita?
I wanted to change topics. I wanted to get your comment on this incident that happened at the EPA earlier today. They were having a national summit on water contaminants. At least 2 reporters were barred from going into the event, and 1 was forcibly removed. I wondered if you had a comment. Do you approve of how that was handled, and will anyone be speaking to the press office over there about it?
Certainly we'll look into the matter. I've seen the reports. I know EPA has put out a statement. At this point, I would refer you to them as we look into the incident. I don't have a lot of visibility since certainly we weren't there and we're in other meetings here, but something we are certainly going to look into. But at this point, I'd refer you to the statement the EPA put out. I can't speak to a situation that I don't have a lot of visibility into, but I would refer you back to their statement. Stephen?
Back to North Korea just for a second. The president of the Oval Office said that he was disappointed that after his second meeting with Xi Jinping, Kim Jong-un seemed to have a change of attitude. Does the White House have any theories as to why that might be? Is China a spoiler, and why?
The president spoke to this directly. There's nothing else to add at this point. Mike?
Can you add anything more about the president's comments? He said that China, South Korea, and Japan were willing to invest very large sums of money into North Korea. Can you add anything more to that? Is the U.S. planning to add to that very large sum? Can you describe what kind of money he's talking about there?
I don't have anything to add beyond the president's comments. I think
Can you talk at all about what President Moon said about Kim, about the new tenor coming out of Pyongyang, what President Trump learned in the meeting with President Moon?
We felt like the conversations today were productive, and again, we're going to continue in preparations, and we'll see what happens. Hallie?
Sarah, to follow up on Anita, and then a question as well to you, is there any situation, barring a security incident, in which you feel the White House feels it is appropriate to physically touch or physically handle a
I'm not going to weigh
reporter?
into random hypotheticals that may or may not exist. I don't know any information about this specific incident. You're asking me to speak to a blanket possibilities, which I'm not going to do, nor would I ever ask or expect you to do.
My
John?
other question was actually on the.
Sorry, I'm
the
going to do
DOJ
one
demand.
question at a time today because we got short on time. John, go ahead.
For the president to make a
Sorry,
demand
John,
on
go ahead.
Department of Justice, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yep, sorry, I'm going to keep moving. We're tight
There's
on
been
time. Thanks.
considerable discussion back and forth about the tenure of Speaker Ryan, whether he will relinquish his gavel early and have a new election of a speaker before the elections. Conservative lawmakers on Capitol Hill made it clear that they want Ryan to stay. Congressman Warren Davidson said that's unfair to the new members coming in. And he also said that there should be a discharge position so members can have an up and down vote on repeal of the Affordable Care Act and immigration. Does the president agree with the statements of Congressman Davidson and the conservatives among House Republicans?
I haven't spoken with him specifically about that statement, so I wouldn't want to wade into that right now. John?
Thanks a lot, Sarah. The president earlier today in that press availability spoke about the protections that he's prepared to offer to Kim Jong-un, not only personally but also for his country. In preparing for these meetings and when the summit actually takes place, does human rights play any consideration in the meeting that the president will have with Kim Jong-un?
I'm not going to get ahead of the discussion that the president and Kim Jong-un could have, but certainly we would expect that would come up and be addressed. Charlie?
Following up on John's earlier question, does the president back Speaker Ryan's decision to stay in office until after the election, or is he concerned that there's maybe a period of time when he's not getting as much done as he could, just serving as a lame duck speaker?
Yeah, at this point, that's something for Speaker Ryan and members of Congress to make that determination, not something that the White House has weighed into at this point. Francesca?
Thank you, Sarah. We heard from President Trump before that meeting with President Moon, but after sitting down with him, does President Trump feel more like this summit is worth having and that it will happen? And what is the White House's drop-dead date, so to speak, for deciding whether or not to go to the summit?
Again, we're going to continue to prepare, and we'll see what happens. There's really nothing to add beyond that at this point. We'll take one last question. Ben?
Thank you, Sarah. I wanted to ask about Gaza. The violence continued today. Does the White House have any plans to meet with the Palestinian Authority?
There are no scheduled meetings at this point, but if something changes, we'll certainly let you guys know. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Where's Thursday meeting, sir? Thursday meeting?
Hey everybody, I'm Devin Dwyer here at ABC News headquarters. Thank you for watching the briefing room here with Catherine Faulders at the White House. We saw Sarah Sanders with an abbreviated briefing today. First time we've had a chance to hear from her and question her in several days. Obviously on a big news day, Catherine, with the president meeting with President Moon of South Korea. The summit before the summit, 3 weeks from today, is when that scheduled sit-down in Singapore is set to begin with Kim Jong-un. Today, though, the president throwing some doubt on that.
Yeah, raising a lot of doubts. He's saying there's a good chance we'll have the meeting, but a very substantial chance that it won't work out. Raising doubts about that meeting that's 3 weeks from today, which is a stark contrast to South Korea's national security advisor, who said earlier that they think this meeting has a 99.9% chance of happening. We know President Moon has pushed for these meetings. He's pushing Trump to sit down. So absolutely raising more doubts. But at the same time, this is similar rhetoric we've heard from President Trump. He said it may happen, it may not happen. If it goes poorly, I may get up and leave. So we just
That's
don't
right. It's
really
part of his
know.
playbook. President Trump likes to keep people guessing. He also, we know, as part of the deal, likes to be able to show he can step away from the negotiating table. So perhaps some signaling going on. Let's bring in Alex Malin over at the White House, who's been tracking the developments all day today with the big visit and the president's 40-minute pool spray. Alex, you just saw that briefing. Sarah Sanders was asked what specifically would need to be presented to President Trump in order for him to get on that plane and take the 20-hour flight to Singapore. She had an interesting answer.
Yeah, I found this kind of striking. She said a commitment to denuclearize. And that's basically what we've heard only verbally from the North Koreans at this point. But again, you've seen this last week. That rhetoric has shifted. They have really backed away kind of as a result of those joint U.S. and South Korea military drills, as well as National Security Advisor John Bolton and some of the rhetoric that he's had in the past with regards to North Korea. So the president obviously today with some of the art of the caveat, I guess is what we can call it, basically throwing what he sees as this summit is really has some doubt to it now.
And speaking of the caveat, Alex, let's take a listen to the president himself. I think we have the sound queued up. Here he was earlier today, throwing into doubt the summit 3 weeks from today. Take a listen.
We are working on something, and, there's a chance that it'll work out. There's a very substantial chance that it won't work out. I don't want to waste a lot of time, and I'm sure he doesn't want to waste a lot of time. So there's a very substantial chance that it won't work out, and that's okay. That doesn't mean it won't work out over a period of time, but it may not work out for June 12th. But there's a good chance that we'll have the meeting.
Will it, won't it? President Trump keeping everybody guessing, but I think, Catherine, facing some blowback from critics that he had been perhaps too eager to get to the table, and I think spooked a little bit that Kim Jong-un sort of backed away in the past week, offered some waffling on whether or not he was willing to denuclearize.
Yeah, I think he was definitely spooked. It caught him off guard. It sure did catch the State Department off guard as well. So it definitely spooked a bit by the waffling. And I think the other interesting aspect of today was our own Karen Travers was throwing questions at the president, and he was totally willing to talk. But the two things he wouldn't answer was, had he spoken with Kim Jong-un and did he trust him? He didn't want to touch that at all. So you could even see a little bit, obviously, in his delivery and the questions he didn't answer that he's eager to have it, but he is waffling a bit.
That's right. And as those of you at home reading the tea leaves here, we just have to show you this tea leaf, because if you are wondering whether the White House truly is skeptical of this summit taking place, well, perhaps they're not really. Perhaps it's a bluff. Take a look at this commemorative coin that has been minted by the White House Communications Agency. That is a real souvenir, if you will, ahead of the summit. They've already gone through the trouble of celebrating the coming meeting between President Trump and Kim Jong-un. There on the right, the coin calls him a supreme leader. If you're going through the trouble of making a coin, Catherine, you're probably feeling pretty good about a meeting.
I mean, when I saw that coin, that tells me it's happening. But then the White House released a statement saying that they make these coins when the trips are announced. This trip has been announced. And that they had no say in the design or manufacture of this coin. I don't know. But we looked at that yesterday and we said, it seems like it's still on.
All right, your taxpayer dollars put to good use. Let's move on, though, to another big story today, which is the president's demand for an investigation of the Russia investigation. A lot of rapid developments overnight from the Hill to the White House. We will go to the Hill in a second, but I want to bring in our Matt Olson, former director of the National Counterterrorism Center and briefly former Deputy Attorney General. Matt is joining us on the phone. Matt, thanks for being here. Wanted to get your take, first of all, on the big picture of this story before we hear what Sarah had to say today on the investigation. What's your take, and was a line crossed with the use of an informant?
Sure, yeah, happy to chat about this. I mean, I think this is actually a kind of a remarkable moment. I was a federal prosecutor for 12 years, and there's a very strong norm, really, more than a norm. It's sort of inviolate that the White House doesn't direct investigations. It doesn't open, it doesn't close, it doesn't influence the course of investigations. So, and you would think that norm would be particularly strong when the actual, subjects of the investigation are people in the White House and perhaps even the president himself. But here you have the president basically saying, I want the Justice Department to investigate, whether or not there was wrongdoing in this investigation, which, from I think anyone outside appears to be, pretty clearly an effort to derail or at least influence the Mueller investigation.
And how do you think, Matt? How do you think Rod Rosenstein is doing here? This is the Deputy Attorney General, met with President Trump yesterday. House Republicans are threatening to impeach him potentially. You've got the president turning up the heat, telling aides he may consider firing Rosenstein. If you're Rosenstein, how are you playing this? He sort of has to thread the needle.
Yeah, he does have to thread the needle. That's exactly right. He's in a very tough spot. Rod is a serious and impressive, former career federal prosecutor before he went into the Deputy Attorney General position. He made it very clear a couple weeks ago that he would not be intimidated. He would not be, as he said, extorted. And I think you can take him at his word. Now, he is in a very tough spot. He's got Congress and the White House demanding to know who the source was of this investigation, which is another very clear red line. You don't reveal sources. Makes it not only hard for this investigation, but for other investigations to recruit sources who, want to stay confidential. So he's in a tough spot. I think he's doing about as well as he can to kind of thread the needle here.
And before we let you go, Matt, I want to ask you about these documents that the president has requested to be revealed. We learned from Sarah Sanders that there's going to be some sort of a meeting brokered between House Republicans who want to learn about this informant and see what the Justice Department has been doing here, and some White House officials. What might they be able to look at when they have this meeting? What sort of records are kept internally at the Justice Department for things like this?
The most sensitive documents in the FBI are documents relating to sources. That's for good reason. Sources who cooperate with investigators, whether it's the FBI or the CIA, the intelligence agencies, they, literally put their lives at risk to help pursue national security investigations and criminal investigations. So those are the most sensitive documents that are in the Justice Department. I assume that what they want to look at is, what was who is this source? What was the background on him? Why was he potentially credible, or maybe where was he maybe not credible? But again, this is a very bright red line that is now being crossed, and I think there's real concern within the Justice Department and the intelligence community that once this line is crossed, it's going to be hard to hold it going forward, and it's going to make it harder to pursue these types of investigations.
Yeah, really difficult to see how this can continue to be an truly independent investigation. Matt Olsen, thank you so much, ABC News contributor and former director of the National Counterterrorism Center. And Catherine, Sarah Sanders saying that meeting is going to happen this week.
She said it's going to happen this week. John Kelly, the chief of staff, is coordinating this meeting. He's not involved in the meeting. Nobody from the White House is, but she said Nunes, Gowdy, Wray, Coates, and a DOJ official is, but no Democrats, which is surely to cause shockwaves on Capitol Hill. That's going to be a big issue for Adam Schiff, who's spoken about it. Her defense of that was that they didn't request to see the documents.
And let's go to Capitol Hill now and bring on our Capitol Hill reporter, Ben Siegel, who's been tracking that side of the story. These documents, these secret documents about the informant, the sourcing that Matt Olsen was talking about, going to be revealed to Nunes, Chairman Gowdy. All Republicans, no Democrats. Ben, what is the reaction from that side of the aisle to this development? A lot of politics here.
Well, if I had to guess, I would assume that the Democrats have learned about this from Sarah Sanders in the briefing. That's generally how information has flowed from the White House to the minority on Capitol Hill. So we haven't heard from them yet, but I do want to point out one interesting point in this whole back and forth. Senator Mark Warner, the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, told one of our colleagues that he and Chairman Richard Burr decided not to get a briefing on this subject because they thought it was too sensitive. So that just goes to show you how sensitive this issue is and how these congressmen might be wading into some uncharted territory here with regard to sensitive investigative documents.
Yeah, very interesting that the senators involved in this investigation, Republicans and Democrats, trying to stay away from this stuff just out of respect for the FBI. Very different take in the House, as you say. I want to point out one other big headline today that you've been following, that a number of Republicans, meanwhile, as all these other developments are swirling, today announced a big push for a second special counsel.
That's right. We had about 19 House conservatives, Republicans, who are among the president's loudest supporters on Capitol Hill. They have unveiled a 12-page resolution calling for Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, to appoint a second special counsel to essentially investigate the investigators, the language you used earlier in this program. And what's interesting about this is the context in which it comes. Obviously, this comes after the president ordered the Justice Department to open an investigation. It comes as the president's new personal lawyer in the Russia investigation, Rudy Giuliani, has been increasingly on the offensive with regards to the Mueller team and sort of his PR war about discrediting, in some respects, the special counsel. So this has happened. One point I'll make is that this has happened before. Republicans have asked for a second special counsel before. In the past, Sessions ignored that. It'll be interesting now to see if this prompts a tweet from the president, if there's a second order perhaps for the Justice Department to install another special counsel. I guess we'll just have to see in this new environment.
All right, you're right. Those allies of the president certainly keeping up the heat. Ben Siegel, stand by. Let's talk about the other big topic of the day, Catherine, the president's ongoing trade negotiations with China. A big sleeper story, really, but important to so many of those red states that helped elect President Trump. He had promised tariffs on China. Those are still in limbo. And what's going on with this company ZTE?
Oh, my goodness.
A Chinese telecom giant. The president had signaled perhaps he would lift sanctions on them.
He signaled he would lift sanctions, and this has been a story going on for about a week and a half now. He directed the Commerce Department to look into this. Sarah Sanders said today that it's still in discussion. But, you know, he said today that he was not satisfied about the recently announced trade agreement between the U.S. and China. The bottom line is there's a lot of mixed messages from the administration. Steve Mnuchin saying one thing, the president will tweet something else, and then obviously the whole debate over the telecom company ZTE is still not sorted out, and the White House is punting to Commerce on that one.
And I have to say, Ben Siegel, before we let you go, I've been surprised by the amount of commentary from both Republicans and Democrats. A lot of major newspaper headlines today basically suggesting the president has caved on China already by holding back on the tariffs and letting ZTE off the hook. What are you hearing up there on the Hill?
That's right. A lot of strong words from Republicans, Marco Rubio, Democrats like Chuck Schumer, saying that China has outmaneuvered the deal maker in chief here. And just one point about how incredulous some members of Congress are. They're drafting a defense policy bill in the House. It's making its way through Congress. There's a measure in that bill that prohibits the Pentagon from working with defense contractors who use ZTE electronics and software. So this is a company that's seen as a national security threat by members of Congress. So that's partially one of the reasons why they're so frustrated by this apparent deal that that's come out of the White House with China to help save this company.
All right, definitely need to keep our eyes on that deal. Our thanks to Ben Siegel for that and Alex Malin over at the White House. And, of course, great to have Matt Olson with us as well. Thank you for joining us today here in the briefing room. For Catherine Faulders, I'm Devin Dwyer. We hope you will follow the latest developments on ABC News, on abcnews.com, the ABC News app, and we'll see you back here at the next White House briefing.